Hi, my name is Cassie Bromberg, and I'm going to be talking about the history of the terrorism and how it's evolved over time. So, I think this is a really important topic because there's been a lot of federal agencies that have switched their procedures or even created due to terrorist events, and I think our everyday life has changed due to just the effect of terrorism and the scare of terrorism. So, just starting off, I wanted to say that terrorism has been around since ancient civilization, but now it has formed into more purpose and more reasoning behind their actions. So, over time, it went from assassination attempts or violence to now using media and it being more globalized. Today's terrorism continues to change due to the technology, the social tensions, and geopolitical conflicts. So, terrorism has started back in the ancient times during wars. It's been around for a while, and ancient groups would use violence in order to have that political leverage. And according to Martin, he said during the period from the assassinations to the French revolutions, behaviors that would later be considered terrorism was commonly practiced in medieval warfare. I think this is really interesting because it shows that it's been around for so long, since the 13th and the 18th century, and it just hasn't been recognized. It was such a common thing that it was just pushed off as violent behavior. Now, these actions that we see are considered terrorist attacks, and it's always been around in the world. We just haven't been able to recognize it until now. I think that the evolution of terrorism has become exponential, and terrorism hasn't functioned the same. It's always been different, and the goal back in the day was to influence the political views or the religious views, and it wasn't just violence. During the 19th century, the rise of terrorism that uses religion or political views in order to push they use political and religious views to push their violence, to give their violence a reason. And anarchists would use bombings and assassinations to challenge governments. They would do that just to show that they are there and that they want change. Nationalist groups would use violence to gain independence or resist foreign rule. And then during the 19th century is when media started happening. So they would use videos of mass assassinations or gruesome assassination attempts to show that their idea isn't going to go away anytime soon. They would use media to help show people that they're doing something for change. So using media as propaganda and having people come from seeing that these people are actually doing change, they want to join those groups in order to help that change that they're also having a problem with. During the 20th century, it was more of like during the 1960s and the 1980s, there was a rise of hijackings, kidnappings, and again, more propaganda. Groups use violence specifically to attract global media, so they would try to do big events in order for them to be reported on, so that their group members would see that they are doing something. So, and then it became really popular, international terrorism. So it wasn't just one conflict, it wasn't just one country. The world began to see terrorism as a major geopolitical problem. During the late 20th century, terrorism shifts into religious extremists. Groups like Al-Qaeda framed their violence as religious duties through motivations, but they were also political. The shift makes attacks more deadly and symbolic. I think religious terrorism would be one of the most dangerous terrorisms due to them having such a guideline, like being able to use their religious book in order to justify what they're doing and try to turn everybody, not just a specific group, just everybody, towards their religion. And I think one of the biggest turning points with terrorism was the 9/11 attack. I think it changed the world's view, and it changed how terrorism was seen. It was one of the most violent attacks that were so fast that it made the U.S. agencies create federal agencies such as the Department of Public Safety, the Homeland Security, and TSA was created. And now they have to use so many new counterterrorism strategies that it was nothing like it was before. So the 9/11 attempt was to spread ideology. It was to recruit many people from any country, and it was to gain global attention. It showed the coordination, it showed how globalized, and it showed how sophisticated these groups can be. And then after the Al-Qaeda groups, ISIS formed in 2004. ISIS was more deadly due to being able to be more media savvy, and they were more brutal. All of their media was those public assassinations, or just the hangings, or being able to, like, they use those videos to recruit more than Al-Qaeda. So ISIS was very media focused, and their attacks were very brutal. They encouraged lone wolf attacks, which was basically you attacking by yourself for the group, and they would try to use this tactic in order to say that people, if you're feeling alone, that joining this group was the best idea. Being able to be part of a group, a reason, and that's what they used in order to get their members. Over the time, ISIS started to get smaller and smaller, and this was due to the loss of territory. A lot of their leadership was captured, and there was a lot of global military pressure. They're still active online, but they're a whole lot weaker than they were when they first started. Today's terrorism is more focused on domestic, so within the country, than I would say international. I think right now there's a lot of extremist groups that are very politically motivated, or there's a lot of racially motivated and anti-government and conspiracy theorists groups, and they tend to be more of those lone actors, where those groups like ISIS and stuff like that, there were huge groups that would do it. But now with the domestic terrorism, they're either small groups or they're lone actors that all have the same views, but don't commit the same acts at the same time. And I would say right now technology kind of facilitates that, because there's encrypted messaging, or there is online forums, and it's so hard for government agencies to track it due to not knowing really where to look, or just it being encrypted in general. I think that domestic terrorism could potentially be more dangerous due to people being so angry and being able to not have to travel far in order to commit these acts. And I think being able to be a lone actor is so much easier and so much more dangerous, because you don't have to plan with a big group of people. Like, being able to just say, I want to fix this, and this is how I'm going to do it, I think is more dangerous. And especially with the political environment right now, I think there's a lot of people that are that angry and are going to be able to find ways to fight back with violence. Social media is just a tool for recruitment for them, and just encrypted apps or being able to use forums on the dark web, like it's hard for them to track. And they can also use cyber terrorism techniques to take down agencies, and it can threaten critical infrastructures. And now terrorists is a mix of physical and digital tactics. I think that terrorism has changed over the time because of politics, society, and technology. I think the motivations change from political and using violence in order to get their way, to religious and anti-government. I think threats today are faster and harder to predict, and understanding the past helps us understand the evolution of today's tactics. In conclusion, I would just say that terrorism has evolved for hundreds of years, but we always see the same thing, that they use fear for influence and try to use fear and violence for change. From ancient times with assassinations to ISIS to domestic terrorism, the methods differ, but the goal is still the same. They all want their idea to become true. I think modern terrorism is more complex because of the technology, the social divisions, and the globalization. I think staying aware of your history helps us address better threats, and having these agencies be on top of counterterrorism or being able to do border patrol or TSA, I think that's extremely important, because it helps us stop stuff from coming in. But I think there should be ways to help prevent domestic terrorism, because there's not much of a limit or a censor of those things. But I would like to say thank you for listening to my presentation, and just, terrorism has evolved so much.